Every hardship is a divine setup for transformation. What you see as a setback is often the silent architecture of your becoming. Allah does not waste the tears you shed in private nor the nights you spend questioning your strength. Each moment of pain is tailored with divine precision to refine your heart, to purify what has been clouded by attachment, pride, or illusion. When life collapses around you, it is not always destruction. Sometimes it is reconstruction. Allah breaks what limits you so He can reveal what liberates you. The loss, the betrayal, the confusion. They are not random. They are lessons sent in disguise, leading you back to what truly matters. In every difficulty, there is an invitation to rise, to see beyond what is being taken and recognize what is being given. Growth rarely happens in comfort. Comfort maintains, but pain transforms. The furnace of hardship melts the impurities of the soul so the essence of faith can emerge clear and radiant. You begin to see that your story was never falling apart. It was falling into place. The people who left, the doors that closed, the dreams that shattered, they were never meant to destroy you. They were meant to awaken you. Transformation is not gentle. It demands surrender. It strips you of false strength so that you can learn true strength, the kind that comes only from reliance on Allah. When He removes something, He replaces it with something greater, not always in form, but in depth wisdom and closeness to Him. Sometimes He takes away what you wanted most to teach you, that what you need most is Him. You are not being punished, you are being positioned. The same pain that feels unbearable now will one day be the reason for your peace. You are being sculpted into who you were always meant to become, molded by divine wisdom that sees far beyond your limited understanding. Every delay, every wound, every unanswered prayer, it all carries meaning, even when hidden from your view. Hardship is not a detour from your path. It is the path that leads you home to Allah. Miracles are born in moments of surrender. When the heart finally releases its desperate grip on control, when the soul whispers, "Wa Allah, I trust you," something shifts in the unseen. The moment you stop fighting the flow of divine will and begin to rest in it, you invite what logic cannot comprehend. Surrender is not weakness. It is the highest form of strength. It is the moment you recognize that your effort has limits, but Allah's power has none. You can plan, strive, and hope, but it is only when you let go of attachment to outcomes that divine ease begins to unfold. Surrender is the bridge between despair and deliverance. The Prophet A taught that when a believer raises their hands in dua, they are never returned empty. Yet the heart must be free of resistance. It is not about giving up, it is about giving in. To the one who knows what you do not, to the one who sees what you cannot. You may think surrender means losing control, but in truth, it means returning control to the one who always had it. This is where miracles begin, not in the striving, but in the surrendering. When you reach that point where all your efforts fail, where the walls close in and no door seems to open, that is where Allah's mercy descends. It is often at the edge of human endurance that divine intervention reveals itself. When Musa Imbco PTE, she stood before the sea with an army behind him and waves before him. There was no escape in sight. Logic said it was over, but surrender said, "My Lord is with me, and He will guide me." And the sea split. This is the power of surrender. It transforms impossibility into testimony. True surrender does not mean silence or passivity. It means continuing to walk while knowing that Allah carries the map. It means making dua, taking steps, but not demanding that life bend to your will. It means saying, "Even if I don't understand, I still trust you." That moment of humility, of complete reliance, opens gates that effort alone never could. The miracle is not only in the outcome, but in the peace that fills the heart even before the outcome arrives. When the soul bows completely, the heart becomes light. The burden of control, fear, and expectation dissolves. You no longer measure your worth by what happens, but by your trust in the one who makes it happen. In that sacred stillness of surrender, you begin to witness how Allah turns hardship into healing, delay into direction, and pain into purpose. Surrender doesn't change Allah's plan. It changes you so you can finally see the miracle He has been writing into your story all along. Faith is not the absence of struggle. It's the ability to see light while standing in darkness. Real faith is not built in ease. It is forged in the moments when you can no longer see the way forward, yet still whisper, Allah is with me. It's not about being untouched by hardship, but about being anchored by conviction when everything around you feels uncertain. The storms of life do not destroy faith. They reveal it. When you stand in the middle of pain, loss, or confusion, and your heart still chooses to trust, that is faith in its purest form. Faith is not the denial of reality. It is the recognition of a higher reality. It is looking at the same chaos others see, but perceiving through the lens of tawakkul, knowing that even in what appears to be loss, Allah is orchestrating mercy. You may not see the wisdom yet, but faith allows you to keep walking through the fog, believing there is light ahead, because the one who guides you never abandons you. Darkness becomes a teacher, not a threat. It humbles you, purifies your vision, and makes you rely on Allah more deeply than you ever did in the light. The heart of a believer learns to rest not in clarity, but in trust. When you cannot understand the plan, you learn to hold onto the planner. When you can't trace his hand, you trust his wisdom. This is not an easy faith. It's a faith built through tears, through nights of silence where you still bow your head and say, "Why, Allah, I know you hear me." Every struggle becomes an act of worship. Every uncertainty a hidden prayer. The believer's resilience is not the absence of emotion. It is the constant return to hope even after being shaken. Faith does not promise the absence of pain. It promises that pain will not be meaningless. The believer sees beyond the surface. They understand that darkness is not the opposite of light, but a space where light is proven. You cannot know the power of hope until you have stood face to face with despair. You cannot understand Allah's mercy until you have felt your own helplessness. The struggle refines the soul, scraping away false attachments until nothing remains but the truth that Allah alone sustains you. To see light in darkness is to remember that the same Lord who split the sea for Musa, who saved Yunus from the belly of the whale, who brought Abraham coolness in the fire, is the same Lord who watches over you now. He has not changed. His mercy has not diminished. What looks like an ending is often a beginning wrapped in disguise. The believer sees through the pain and recognizes the fingerprints of divine care in every detail. Faith in the darkness is not about pretending everything is fine. It's about believing that even when everything seems broken, Allah is still working for your good. It's about trusting that every delay carries a lesson, every heartbreak holds healing, and every unanswered prayer conceals a better answer. When the heart reaches this state, it no longer demands proof, it rests in presence. The light of faith is not external. It shines from within the heart that knows Allah is near. Even when the world feels far, the heart heals when it remembers who truly holds it. Healing does not begin when circumstances change. It begins when you remember that your heart was never meant to be carried alone. Every wound, every heartbreak, every disappointment becomes lighter when you recall that the one who created your heart is also the one who mends it. You were not made to place your peace in people, possessions, or outcomes, all of which are temporary and fragile. You were made to find peace in the eternal, the one who never leaves. When the heart forgets this, it begins to chase healing in places that only deepen its ache. But when it remembers, it returns home to the quiet safety of divine care. The heart breaks when it becomes attached to what was never meant to stay. Every attachment to creation carries within it the seed of pain, because creation is transient by nature. People change, time shifts, life moves, but the heart that anchors itself to Allah remains steady even when everything else trembles. True healing begins when the heart stops seeking permanence in what is temporary. When you stop asking others to be your source of peace and instead turn to the one who is peace itself, something inside you begins to breathe again. The chaos within starts to soften, and you begin to see that what you lost was never your destruction. It was your redirection. When Allah removes something from your life, He is not depriving you, He is detoxing you. Sometimes the heart must be emptied of false loves so that it can be filled with true love, love that liberates rather than enslaves. The process is painful because detachment feels like loss, but in reality, it is restoration. The heart was created to know its maker, to love Him above all, and to find rest in His remembrance. Every time the heart forgets this truth, life gently or forcefully reminds it through moments of separation, longing, or pain. Allah uses heartbreak not to destroy, but to redirect the heart back to where it belongs. The one who heals is not time, it is remembrance. The decor of Allah polishes the heart until the dust of grief and confusion begins to fade. In remembrance, you realize that you were never abandoned. Even in your loneliest moments, Allah was near, watching you struggle, waiting for your return. You begin to see that your wounds were not wasted. They were divine messages urging you to depend less on creation and more on the Creator. Healing is not forgetting the pain. It is understanding the purpose behind it. The pain becomes sacred because it led you back to Him. When you remember who holds your heart, you stop chasing validation from those who could never understand your worth. You no longer measure your value by who stays or who leaves, but by the fact that Allah chose you to endure, to learn, to rise. You realize that even heartbreak carries hidden mercy, because sometimes what breaks your heart is the same thing that saves your soul. The person you lost, the dream that died, the door that closed, each was part of a divine plan to return you to what truly matters. The heart heals in stages, and each stage brings you closer to surrender. At first, you resist, then you grieve. Then, slowly, you remember. You remember that you were never in control. That love is safest when placed in the hands of the one who will never misuse it. You start to trust that every ending is a divine beginning. The heart that once cried in loss now begins to smile in remembrance. It begins to find sweetness in solitude because it realizes it is not alone. When the heart rests in Allah's care, it no longer fears breaking. It understands that every fracture is an opening through which divine light can enter. Every tear becomes a form of worship, every sigh a silent prayer, every heartbeat a reminder of His mercy. The healing does not come from escaping pain, but from embracing it with awareness that even pain is held by Him. The heart heals not by forgetting who hurt it, but by remembering who holds it. Patience is not waiting silently, it's trusting actively. It is not a passive act of enduring time until the storm passes. It is a living expression of faith that says, even in this uncertainty, I know my Lord is working. True patience is not quiet desperation. It is spiritual resilience. It is standing firm when everything around you tempts you to give up, and whispering in your heart that Allah's timing is not late. It is perfect. Patience is not about suppressing emotion. It is about transforming it into worship. It is about carrying your pain to the prayer mat, not to despair. Many people mistake patience for silence, as if waiting without complaint is the goal. But divine patience is deeper. It's an inner act of surrender that coexists with effort. You still take steps. You still make do, you still strive, but you release the illusion of control over how and when your prayers will be answered. You trust that what's written for you cannot miss you, and what misses you was never written for you. Patience is walking through uncertainty with conviction that Allah is not only aware of your struggle, but is shaping something beautiful through it. Patience is not the absence of action. It is action guided by faith rather than fear. It is what allows you to keep planting seeds, even when you cannot see the harvest. It's what keeps you showing up in prayer, even when your heart feels dry. What keeps you kind when others are unkind? What keeps you believing when nothing makes sense? Patience is not laziness or inaction. It is trust expressed through consistency. Every time you choose to wait with dignity instead of anxiety, to believe instead of despair, you are practicing active patience. In the Quran, Allah pairs sabr with salah, patience with prayer, because one sustains the other. Prayer without patience becomes restless, and patience without prayer becomes empty. Together, they become a bridge across hardship. When you turn to Allah in every moment of difficulty, your patience becomes sacred. You begin to see that every delay is not denial, but a divine arrangement. The believer learns to love the waiting because it is in waiting that faith matures. Every unanswered dua is a lesson in trust. Every prolonged hardship a classroom for the soul. Patience is what holds you steady in the space between asking and receiving. It teaches you that not everything needs to happen now, that sometimes Allah's mercy is hidden in the delay. There are doors you prayed for that did not open, not because you were forgotten, but because He knew what lay behind them. There are hearts you wanted to keep that were removed, not because you were unworthy, but because He knew they would block your growth. Patience teaches you that Allah's not yet is still mercy, and His no is often protection. To trust actively means to continue doing good even when you cannot see results. It means maintaining your worship, your gratitude, your humility, even when life feels stagnant. It means staying soft-hearted when your heart wants to harden. Patience is not about pretending the pain doesn't exist. It's about remembering that pain itself can be a form of purification. When you're patient for the sake of Allah, you are not enduring alone. Every sigh, every tear, every heartbeat of waiting is counted and rewarded by the one who sees what others cannot. Patience is also about timing, divine timing. We live in a world that glorifies immediacy, where everything is measured by how fast we can achieve it. But the heart of a believer moves to a different rhythm. The believer knows that slow growth is still growth, that hidden progress is still progress. Patience teaches you to trust the unseen process. Like the seed buried beneath the soil, unseen for months, yet silently growing roots strong enough to bloom later. Your prayers are like that seed. You may not see them sprout yet, but deep beneath the surface, Allah is preparing something only time will reveal. Patience transforms your perspective. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? You begin to ask, what is Allah teaching me through this? You stop viewing your delay as a punishment and start seeing it as a sacred pause. You begin to notice that the waiting itself refines you. It builds endurance, humility, and depth. The same hardship that once felt unbearable becomes the source of your strength. Patience teaches you to breathe through uncertainty, to trust the process even when the outcome is unclear. The most beautiful patience is when the heart is content even before the relief comes. When you stop tying your peace to outcomes, you begin to live from a place of trust. You stop demanding that life unfold your way and start believing that Allah's way is always better. You start to understand that what is delayed is not denied, And what is withheld now will return multiplied later. Patience opens the door to serenity because it teaches you that your timing is not divine timing. Patience is not the art of waiting. It is the art of believing while you wait. It is what allows you to smile in the storm, to be grateful in the dark, to keep walking even when you can't see the end of the road. It is not stillness. It is motion rooted in trust. To practice patience is to live in harmony with divine decree, to trust that even in silence, Allah is speaking, even in stillness, He is working, and even in delay, He is delivering exactly what your heart needs at the perfect time.